Hello everyone, KryptoCal here, and welcome to the next episode of FTB Skies. In the last episode, we went ahead and set up ourselves this setup with these simulation chambers to automate some mob resources. Now, I have since obviously moved the setup upstairs here into the main storage building because there was quite a bit of room up here still to do stuff with, and I figured we might as well make use of the space and kind of clean up our island over there to keep room for other buildings. But as of right now, we are out of the simulation matrix. They've gone through all 2,000 or so of them, and I haven't refilled this quite yet because honestly, I really haven't needed to. A little bit of time has passed, and if we come in here, we can see that we have 1.46 thousand nether stars. We have 8.2 thousand blaze rods and an absolute ton of wool. Our emerald count is looking amazing as well. So I haven't really felt the need to refill these as of now. I'll probably set these back up again with some automated matrix crafting once we have AE2 up and running, because that way we can make sure that those prediction matrices are always stocked. In between episodes, I also went ahead and got rid of all the things that were out on the island. I just kind of ended up moving all this stuff off of the island here, so it's not an eyesore anymore and it doesn't clog up the space. And I actually have moved it up here into this compact machine. And if we come inside here, I have a couple things going. For example, I moved our mechanism setups in here. This is just the kind of the manual setup to create some of the basic resources that we need. So I figured I'd just keep them in here, and because this is actually chunk loaded, I can set these things to go and they will just continue to produce even while I'm not inside of the machine. I also moved the pedestal upgrade setup inside of the compact machine as well as setting up this little contraption. As you can see, I have a pedestal here which I've actually dyed black and given it a piece of glowstone, and I think that looks really cool. For one, I actually have this producing infinite glass for us, and the way I'm doing this is by using something called the smelter upgrade from the pedestals mod. This can basically accept power like any other smelter would. This is super fast. I have a infinite sand generator here with a maxed out pedestal, and this is also a maxed out smelting upgrade. So this is producing glass so fast. You can't really tell how fast this is producing the glass because I do have this going right into the ender chest. But if I disconnect this for a second, you'll see that this is, yeah, see, we already have smelted a full stack of glass there, and these are very tileable too. And considering we don't really have any issues with power anymore, this is actually an amazing setup for all sorts of smelting tasks. So yeah, this is what our compact machine looks like right now, and I'll probably add a couple little things here and there to it as we go. Eventually, I do want to have obviously a permanent setup for our mechanism stuff here, but having stuff like this just kind of tucked away in a compact machine is really nice. I also went ahead and made a clipboard from Create, and this basically acts as a really awesome checklist. For example, I have a couple of things planned for this episode, and we can actually write them down on here. And before we continue on in this episode, I want to actually take a quick detour over to my creative world because I had a question on the Discord actually. If you haven't joined already, be sure to go over there and join because there's lots of fun stuff happening over there. But there was a question over there about the schematics and how I use schematics and the whole process of how I go about designing them and pasting them into the world. So what I'd like to do is actually go ahead and explain a little more detail about how these schematics actually work with the Create mod. And then in the near future, I was considering actually doing a live episode where I actually live stream me playing in my creative world working on a build, because I had some questions about how I go about designing my builds and my entire build process on how I detail things and stuff. So that's all stuff that I love to do, but it's just really hard to do all that in a normal length episode. So if you are interested in me doing this kind of live episode style where I go and do a little bit more explanation and deep diving into my creative process, then be sure to leave a comment and let me know you want to see that, because that'll basically make it so I know whether or not that's going to be something that happens. I want to give an example of how I create a schematic. So to go ahead and get started with our schematics, let's go ahead and grab a schematic and quill. This is what we actually need to use to create the schematic itself. So once we have a schematic and quill, we can go ahead and bring this over here. And I have conveniently laid out these diamond blocks where the corners of the build are. Essentially how the schematic and quill works is it lets you draw a box around any object you've created and save that as a schematic. So for example, I can come down here and right click on this diamond block right here. And as you can see, as we drag it up, it kind of creates a very visual box that we can see what's going to be inside of our schematic. So we can go ahead and take this and now bring it up and right click on the other diamond block. And now we can see that this entire tree here is within the bounding box of this schematic file. So once we've selected both corners, this corner and the top left corner, we can go ahead and right click one more time and it'll actually let us save a schematic. So I can go ahead and say test schematic 1, and then we can go ahead and save it. So now we have the schematic saved and ready to go. So once you've done that, you can actually go ahead and grab your schematic table out, and this is what you would go ahead and do in your normal world. You would put a schematic table down in your survival world, right click on it, and then you would go and put an empty schematic. You can go ahead and press, or whatever your schematic name is, you can just hit this check mark and it'll upload this to a new schematic file. Now this schematic file is what we actually need to use to place the new schematic in the world. So what we can go ahead and do is kind of pick a spot for this. We'll say right beside this tree. And once you've right clicked, it'll kind of lock itself in place, so you can't move it around anymore. But then once you have it placed down like this, you actually get to have a little bit of control of how to go about moving it around. There's a couple things we can go ahead and do now with the schematic. So for example, we can go ahead and move the X and Z. You actually want to hold the left control button down, and then you can use your scroll wheel to kind of move it forward and backwards. The way that it actually moves and knows which direction to move is depending on what face you're looking at. So for example, if we're looking at this right face, it's going to move forward and backwards in this direction. But if we come over to the front face here, it'll go forwards and backwards in this direction. Very similarly, we can go ahead and hold Alt and change it to move Y. And now we can scroll up and down to change the vertical height of our schematic. And then also we can go ahead and change the rotation. So if we hold our control, we can go and flip it around a bunch too. You can also go ahead and use it to flip it along an axis. So we can say flip it along this axis, or we can change it to a axis like in this direction here. So there's lots of customization options for that. And then the position one just lets you kind of reposition where the schematic is. Once you have your schematic placed down like this, you would go ahead and place it inside of the schematic cannon. So I hope that offered a little bit more of an explanation of how the schematics actually work. And again, if you do want to see me do some more real-time designing of the builds that I've been making on this creative world, definitely feel free to leave me a comment saying you want to see it. And if there's enough interest in something like that, then I'll definitely go ahead and plan to do a live stream of it. So to start off today's episode, I want to get ourselves something set up for these bees, because our poor bees over here have been just out in the open doing their own thing for a long time. And I think it's about time that we gave them a place to call home and also start producing us some honey, because if we come down to our quest line here at the bottom, we see that our next task involves us getting 100 buckets of honey. And we already had the power, no problem, but the honey is kind of our gateway right now. To get started with productive bees, we need to get ourselves a couple of beehives. Now, in this pack, beehives actually can be made by using the normal planks and some sugar. Now, there are other variations of the hive we can make. So for example, there should be a spruce beehive that we can make, but to get this spruce one, this is actually an advanced beehive, which requires a normal one with some more planks, some honeycomb, a campfire, and a shear. So we're gonna have to start off by just making the normal beehive for now. I think I'll maybe start with 7. I don't even think we have that many bees right now, but we'll get a few extras here. And this should give us a couple of, ooh, this actually gives us a campfire oak. Oh, we actually get a couple honeycomb from this. So we may actually be able to turn one of these into an advanced hive already because of that quest reward. Yeah, all we need is a pair of shears here, and we can actually go ahead and create our advanced oak beehive this way. And we actually got an oak expansion box for this beehive, so that's really cool. So I've actually been breeding up these bees here just to get a nice population of these up and going. I'm not sure how many of these I'm actually going to want, so we may have plenty at this point already. So let's go ahead and try this out. If I go ahead and maybe put the advanced hive down right here, and then let these guys go right here, are they all going to go to the hive? Looks like it. Okay. There are 3 here. I'm not sure if I can pick this up without a campfire, but let's go ahead and test it out. If I grab this with a normal pickaxe, yep, we do have all 3 bees inside of this hive still. Nice. And it should be the exact same for the other beehives. They just won't have an inventory like the advanced one. So I'm going to go ahead and fill up all the hives that I have here with bees, and then we'll come back. So I do want to upgrade all these normal beehives to the advanced hives, because they'll actually allow us to have 5 bees per beehive as opposed to just the 3, because we can put the advanced beehive down and then put one of the expansion boxes on top of it, which adds extra room for 2 more bees, and then also lets us put other upgrades in these beehives like speed upgrades and production upgrades. But to do that, we have to actually get ourselves some honey first, because right now we have no honey production at all. Let's put a little bit of glass down, and again, this is very temporary right now. Let's go ahead and place down some ethereal glass. That's how we're going to get in and out without the bees coming in and out. So now we're just going to go ahead and put down a trapdoor in front of all the campfires, because we don't want them to hurt themselves. An allium in between each of these. And now we can go ahead and put our beehives in. Put our advanced hive right in the middle. And then there should be one more spot like that. Let's breed a few more of these up as well. I'm not sure how many more we're going to need. And hopefully we'll see some honey in here very shortly. And there we go. We got our first little bit of honey here. So let's go ahead and shear this. 3 out of those and 3 out of those. Perfect. Breeding of bees can be a little bit tedious. So let's go ahead and craft up a few of these advanced beehives. Now, one thing I really do want to get is these simulator upgrades. These will basically make it so the bees actually don't leave their hives at all, and they just simulate going to the flower and back. It makes it much more compact and much more lag friendly because you don't have bees actually flying around all over the place, which will be really helpful once we have a bunch of these hives in place. But they are a little expensive. They do require 4 honeycomb blocks per, and right now we do not have nearly enough honeycomb for that, so we're going to have to go ahead and set up our production without those simulator upgrades to start. And when there is no honey in here, but it looks like there is honey to be harvested, that means that we can put some bottles in here and actually get out some honey bottles out of here, and also a little extra honeycomb, which is really nice. Okay, so we're grabbing our bees outside here, and this is working a little bit better for getting them inside. And hopefully once he's done pollinating, he should go inside the hive. And then I should be able to pick this up with a Silk Touch tool and move it inside the box. Okay, so it's all ready to pick up. Let's go ahead and grab these guys, and that should be 3 bees ready to go. And we can place them down now inside of our little box, and they should hopefully grab one of the flowers once they are ready to come out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with the other beehives as well, and I'm going to fill up as many beehives as I can here to fill inside the box, and we'll see how many bees we have left. So I actually had enough honeycomb to try and upgrade one of these advanced hives with a simulator upgrade. So now these bees in here will never come out of the hive, and they'll just stay inside and simulate their trip to a flower. There is something also that we can put down in front of these called a feeding slab, which basically lets you put a bunch of different types of blocks depending on what kind of bee you're using. You can basically put the flower inside the feeding slab, put it right in front of the hive, and that will basically also be used with the simulator upgrade to simulate a trip to that flower and back. But I have a feeling that these sturdy bee cages are going to be very useful later on to do a bunch of bee breeding and moving around, so I'm probably going to want more than just the one. We're going to have to go ahead and grab a villager and also grab a beehive. Let's grab a trader out of here really quick, and maybe some emeralds also to trade with this guy to level him up. So it must have to be the advanced hive. So let's go ahead and upgrade this one hive. There we go. He is now a beekeeper. So just do the bottles, I guess. And let's see if we level him up. We actually want the cages. So that's what I'm kind of interested in more than that. But this is actually really handy, the advanced oak beehive upgrade. And also the expansion box is really good too. And there we go. We have now a bee cage to make a sturdy bee cage. Now, the normal bee cages, I believe we can craft those. We should be able to buy it from the villagers as well, though, which is kind of strange that we didn't get it at first at level 2. So maybe we'll go ahead and try a different villager in here and see if we can get him to actually give us the right trade. There we go, the bee cages. So we need a couple more emeralds out of here. And there we go, we can now trade right up to the sturdy beach. So now we have 13. So that's actually going to be much better than just having the one. So to make a feeding slab, it's actually very easy. All you have to do is have some smooth stone and also just I think just a random chest, and that'll get this feeding slab. I'll do 5 for now. And I can basically come over here to one of these simulated beehives and place this feeding slab down right in front. And if we come in here and right click, we can go and put the rose bush inside, and that'll basically act as a flower for it. And hopefully this should actually start to produce more honey now. Because these two both have simulator upgrades, I'm going to be working on getting more and more as I get more honeycomb, but unfortunately that process is relatively slow right now. I wonder if I can actually go ahead and use some of my temporal pouch to speed up the production here of the advanced hive. Looks like we have an upgrade for speed, which is already, I think, an upgrade we got from a reward. And this takes some more honeycomb and clocks, so that's actually pretty cheap. There's also a productivity upgrade, but that requires some draconic chunks. All right, so we actually have enough of these simulator upgrades to go into all 5 of these advanced hives, which is amazing. We need to get a couple more bees in here, which we can do very easily with just the cages. There we go. We can throw him in there, and then we can throw a couple more in here as well. And we need what? Looks like 6 more to fill up this side. Let's go grab 6 more. We have a couple bees left over here. I'll actually go ahead and breed them up just to kind of keep the production going here. Uh-oh. Oh no, I accidentally hit one of them, which is not good. So that one bee is gonna die. That stung me, unfortunately, which it does happen from time to time. But that's okay. They should settle down within the next 10 seconds or so. It looks like most of their eyes are no longer red, so I think they are okay with me now. And yes, that one bee just poofed into smoke, unfortunately. But so to simplify the breeding process even further, the productive bees mod adds this breeding chamber, which we can actually go ahead and make very easily just by getting another upgrade base. And this baby upgrade can be made by just grabbing a couple of flowers here. Let's just grab some of the roses. And then we can go ahead and turn this into the breeding chamber. I'm not 100% sure how this thing works. Let's go ahead and just put it down right here for now. It looks like all we have to do is basically give 2 bees by grabbing some cages. So let's go ahead and grab 2 adults here. And if we put 2 adults in here, is this going to start? This requires some power. I have no issues with power, so let's go ahead and give this a little bit of power just on the side. Oh, there we go. That is working, it seems. It is, okay. So we can actually go ahead and speed this up, it looks like. We can also upgrade this if we want to. And then there's also a machine called an incubator, where you can put the babies inside of, and they'll automatically turn into adults. Oh, it does require some honey treats to grow up, it looks like. So we can go ahead and just throw these in here, and hopefully that'll start to work. Oh, this takes 20 honey treats. And those are expensive. These are like, they take 1 honeycomb each. I don't know if that's really worth it, because we can just go ahead and just speed these guys up with just normal flowers, I think. I don't know if we're going to actually worry about using the incubator, but we'll definitely use this one here. So in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have taken down that glass box yet, because we are going to probably want to grow up some more babies inside of it. So now we can go ahead and just take our baby bees out of here, place them down inside of this little area, and oh, stop it. I don't know why they always seem to be taking damage somehow. We can just manually increase their growing speed. And how are we doing on the honeycomb over here? Looking good. We got 10 in each of these, which is fantastic. And I think we can even go ahead and get a couple more of these boxes now. We'll put the expansion boxes on top of all of these. And there we go. So we have room for 5 more bees in each. And here are our last 5 that are going in this hive here. And then we should have all of these filled up with bees. All these have simulator upgrades with no other upgrades in them currently, but they all have 5 bees in them. So now my goal is just to have these produce a bunch of honeycomb, so we can go ahead and upgrade all of these with the speed upgrades, because I think that's pretty much the only upgrade we can add right now. So I want to max all these guys out with speed upgrades so we can be producing as much honeycomb as possible. One thing we can do to get honey really, really fast, I think, is taking this hive here that I have upgraded with 3 speed upgrades. If we take our temporal pouch now and just speed this all the way up, I bet this is going to start cranking out a ton of honey. Okay, yeah, that's going to be pretty much good for the rest of the upgrades on the hives now. Well, that was definitely effective. 6 stacks of honeycomb, that should be enough, hopefully, to get all of our upgrades done. I just grabbed the last few bees that I had just sitting over here. I had perfectly enough to have 5 more, so I figured I might as well add a final set of bees right here. So I would call this a pretty good small starter honey farm here, so I would go ahead and give this a check mark. I think we can accomplish that task for the episode. Now, we're producing the honeycombs pretty effectively at this point, but we need to be able to get the buckets of honey, not just the honeycomb. To get the honey buckets, we're going to have to come in here and take a look at our options for this, because there are quite a few different types of honey in this pack. To count towards the quest that we're trying to accomplish, the only honey that's going to be allowed is going to be the productive bees type honey, which means that it has to either be done inside of the create mixer using some of these combs, or we can do it inside of the centrifuge. And there are 3 different types of centrifuges here. There's the basic one, which is just some iron and a grindstone, but then you can also upgrade this to become the powered centrifuge. And then you can also upgrade that further to become a heated centrifuge. But I think the one that we're going to be trying to get is just the powered centrifuge. And because we are going to get into this right now and hopefully get ourselves fully automated on honey, I don't actually know if we're going to have time to get to AE2 today. We might go ahead and just make that the start of the next episode and really dedicate most of the time to that. And we're just going to add produce honey to the task list here instead, because that is what we want to produce. We want to produce the liquid honey to be able to hand into this quest here. Okay, so I've taken down the setup over here because I do have plans to build a nice spot for the bees right over here beside our sifting building. And I'm probably going to run this 7 blocks wide, probably lengthwise here. And I think I'm just going to tuck the bee setup over down back here in its own little building just beside the sifting building, because I think it matches the aesthetic of this area and it'll just be a nice little small addition to the spot. So I think we're going to go ahead and add the beehives just like this and probably center it around here. We'll do 5 here, and then I guess we'll do 7 wide. Have the expansion boxes on top of these, and then we'll probably leave space in the middle here just for the next layer of feeding slab that we're going to have to do. Maybe some oak logs just to just to space it out a little bit. And there we go. And let's go grab our advanced hives out, and then we're going to start the next layer of them right here. And then we want to get the feeding slabs out, and we have to make sure they're dropped down by 1 block here. So let's go ahead and break out the blocks underneath really quick. I'll just put some more oak logs under here just for now. And then we just got to put the feeding slabs in just like this, and then also up right here. Making sure we put 1 rose bush in every single slab. And it looks like we're at the end of the bees here. We are a couple short. We're, I guess, 15 and then 3 more. So we're 18 bees short, but we should have that in there set up over there. We should have the babies growing up, so that is good. So now that we have this ready to go, what we want to do is actually turn all the honeycomb that is being produced out of these into liquid honey, and we're going to do that by using the centrifuge. You have to make sure we are using the productive bees powered centrifuge and not the thermal centrifuge, because this will give us a different type of honey, which is not accepted for the quest. And then once we have the normal centrifuge, we can turn it into the powered centrifuge. Now you can use this thermal recipe right here, or you can use 2 basic control circuits from Mechanism to do it. I think this is actually the cheaper recipe because all it takes is 1 extra gold piece here. So I'll go ahead and just use the thermal recipe to get a powered centrifuge. Because we aren't breeding the bees here anymore, I'm going to go ahead and grab our point to bring this over here to add. Then what we want to do is we want to extract the honeycomb out of the bottoms of all of our beehives. And then we'll link them up here, and we have to go ahead and use our wrench to configure the outputs here. Let's go ahead and just output on all of these. So now we can put the powered centrifuge down just like this, and we can give this also some speed upgrades if we grab our upgrades out of here. There we go. This is a maxed out centrifuge now, and giving this some power should result in this starting to produce all the resources that we want. So we can see we have liquid honey coming in here. Now we also do get this wax material. We can use the wax to create wax blocks and also the candles, but I don't really think these are used for a whole lot. I think I'm going to go ahead and probably just trash it. If I just grab a trash can really quick, say normal trash can will work just fine. Let's go ahead and just throw this down here, and we'll just add the pipe and disconnect it right here. So we should only extract the wax from here and not the actual comb. But just to guarantee that, we can go ahead and just whitelist the wax. So that should be fine now. Now, just for the aesthetics and also for honey storage, I think I want to actually create a little setup from create here to have a tank to store the honey. So if we come in here and place a tank like so, and we can build this to be 4 tall, just like this. And now we can go ahead and grab a fluid pipe to pipe into the tank. Just like so. We'll add 1 upgrade in here just to make it extract faster. And there we go. We have 12 buckets of honey all ready to go. So that's pretty much the entirety of the honey setup. All we're going to have is basically honey now being automatically produced and put into this fluid tank right here, which will slowly fill up over time. But this is pretty ugly. So I want to go ahead and get something built around this. Now this will be a bit of a smaller build. So I think I'm going to go and probably just build this by hand here without having to do any schematics or anything. And I'll take you through my design process as I do it. If I was going to build something around this setup, very tight and compact to this, it would be a very small little building. It would be no bigger than kind of like a shed, nothing super big, and it would look a little silly kind of beside any of these other buildings. So how I want to set this up is I want this to be kind of the front end of the build where we have our access to all of our honeycombs and our bees here. I want this to be the external face. I don't want to enclose this in anything. I kind of want this to be an open to the air feel that we can kind of walk in and check on our bees, see how they're doing, and then leave. So this will probably be one of the faces of our building, but I do want to enclose all of our cabling and stuff in here because this is all ugly, and I was thinking maybe we'll have the back wall of this, and I was thinking maybe the back wall of this would be somewhere around here, where we would have kind of the tank be the only thing that we can see from this back wall. So effectively the build would be about 5 blocks wide here in this sense from wall to wall. But I don't want to use the oak wood for the walls, I don't think. Because we're kind of working in the farming area here with bees, I kind of wanted the feel of this building to be a little more down to earth, more of the mud brick style, and then maybe working our way up to a sandstone or something that's a little more of an earthy tone, but still would work with the aesthetic around here, probably with some spruce trim, just to kind of tie it all together. So we'll see if we can make something work with that palette. Now, while I don't want the spruce and the oak here to be the wall texture itself, I do like this as kind of a framing block because we do have a very similar tones going on here. So I think this looks really nice as a bit of a frame. And I think we'll come out 1 block from the tank here and do the exact same thing. We'll just build up here up till about where we have the other one right there, and that should be good. And then we'll just square off the build here by just adding in a little more trim. And that is looking good. So I have been harvesting up some of this wheat here. Hopefully we do have access to a little bit of this packed mud if we do have some. How can we go ahead and get... Oh, we don't have any mud. We might actually be able to get some of the muddy mangrove roots. There we go, a mangrove propagule. Let's grab one of those. Now, will this actually let us get some of those muddy roots? Let's see, we have the normal roots and the logs, but I don't think we had any of the muddy roots in here. Now that I think about it, we can actually make a little bit of mud, I think, by just right-clicking with a water bottle on some dirt. Yes, we can. Perfect. So now we have one piece of mud, which is, I think, all we should need now that we have the access. Now that we have access to the muddy mangrove roots. I'm going to probably take this down after we're done, but let's go ahead and put this on, and that should generate us infinite mud. So now to turn this mud into some packed mud, we have to go ahead and get a little bit of wheat out, which we have been gathering a bit of here and there, and combine it just so that we can make the packed mud. And we have 3 stacks of it now. We're going to convert a little bit probably to the bricks. We'll probably do a bit of a palette of both of these, because I do like the texture of both. What I'll do for texturing is I'll usually pick a block to be kind of the bottom block of the build. So the block that's going to be a little bit more run down and worn because it's closer to the ground and where the dirt and stuff will blow around. And then I'll work my way up to the more clean looking blocks like the bricks or the polished versions up at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and try something like that here as well. We're going to mix in a little bit of the brick down here, but for the most part, it's going to be more of the packed mud than the actual brick itself. And as we get higher up here, we're going to slowly transition this now to be mostly the packed mud bricks. So by the time we're at the top here, most of this will be the brick and then only a little bit of packed mud. This way we kind of work our way up and it kind of draws the eyes upwards a little bit. Now I am going to do a little bit more with this front face at some point because it looks a little bit too flat for my liking. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is just fill in the walls across all of this, and we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. And actually looking at this now, I might want this tank to come up one higher just to kind of meet this top point of the expansion boxes. And let's go and bring this up by 1 block just like so. And I think that really works together with the whole build. It's kind of got a little bit of a warmer tone with the mud. And because we are using the create tanks in here, this kind of the copper tones, I think this looks really nice. Now I do want there to be a second floor up here. Whether or not we actually use it as a second floor or if it's just purely aesthetic, that remains to be seen. But I think what I'm going to do is start the second floor now on top of our spruce here. And then we'll basically build it up a few blocks to be a little bit taller. And the reason that I'm doing this is twofold. One, it adds a little bit more interest to the build. It lets you change up the palette a bit and kind of create a more two-tone style, which I think looks really nice in a lot of cases. I've been really enjoying these two-tone designs, so I'm going to go ahead and do something very similar. Now, one very interesting thing that I found out you can do with these feeding slabs is actually right-click with them. You can right-click them with a spruce slab or whatever other slab you want, and it'll actually act as a bit of a facade, and it doesn't actually use the spruce slab. It just lets you kind of cover it and change the way that it looks. So before we worry about the sides of the builds here, let's go ahead and get the second floor in. So what we're going to be using for the second floor, I think, is a combination of some smooth sandstone and regular sandstone. So we're going to work with the same texturing strategy as we did before down here. We're going to start with the more rough looking block at the bottom, like the sandstone, and then slowly gradually work up to the smooth sandstone at the top. So let's go ahead and just place down a little bit of this. So now that we have this layer, I think what we're going to do is come up probably another 3 to make it a 4 tall second layer here, which will probably be about the right height we're looking for. So as we obviously go up here, we're going to slowly start to transition into more of the smooth sandstone. Not to say that we won't have any of the rough around, but we're just going to probably try and have more of it start to be smoother. I do want to add a little extra color to this build in other ways, but I think the spruce trim is going to be the best looking option for us. So the part that I'm going to start with when I'm looking at doing a trim is how we're going to need to separate parts of this build out, because trim is obviously a framing technique to frame out corners and edges between 2 separate flat faces. So if I want to break this big flat wall up, we might think that we're going to want to do some trim between where the mud brick and the smooth sandstone meet, which would make the most sense. So we're going to go ahead and start doing some sort of trim design on this wall. Now we could do a trim that's very straightforward and simple, where we just basically bring some spruce all the way across, and that can be fine, and that does, you know, create that transition between the two, but I think we can do a little better in terms of detailing this to make it look a little bit more appealing. So I think a nice gentle transition is going to be what we're going to want to go for. So I'm thinking we start maybe just by adding in a little bit of spruce stairs up to potentially a trap door, and then maybe a spruce up here, something like that maybe. And it's a little flat on the top here as well. So what we can actually do is just add in some more blocks on top of these just to kind of add a little more roundness to the top. And that is starting to take shape. And then on the sides here, we can just add in our outdoors, and then maybe we'll put a spruce slab back on top of all the logs here to cap them off. And already this is looking much more interesting of a wall than it did before. So knowing that we'll do this kind of the same design on this side with the spruce slabs, and now we have to do something with this side wall here and the exact same wall on the other side. Now I could do basically the exact same design by just placing down some more logs here to create some depth, but I think this might look a little bit too thick. I can test it out really quick though. Let's see. We bring this in and then strip our spruce. Like, it does work, but by the time we do this here on this side as well, it's going to have a really big chunky spot here that looks maybe a little bit strange. So I think what we're going to do is just break out some of the middle parts of this. I do like the concept of doing the same thing here though. So if we go ahead and do something like this first, the idea is now we can maybe use some of these spruce objects because they are very similar in color. We can just come in here, maybe add stairs on all these like this, and maybe just fill it in with a trapdoor to create a little bit of extra depth. And this just kind of creates a unique shape on this wall. So it's not really all the same as on this big wall because it is a smaller wall. And I think what we'll do is just bring some stairs in here to kind of make this arch shape. And then maybe we can add just a slab in the middle here with maybe a spruce on the top and bottom like that. And that kind of adds a little arch to this spot right here. And I think we'll just do the exact same thing on the other side. Now I'm not doing any of the trim on the front by the beehives here because I do have a plan to create some sort of overhang that we can kind of walk out and under to kind of give them a little bit of shade from the sun. And it also will give me an excuse to add a little bit more shape and variety to this otherwise very rectangular build. It'll be a very similar concept to the reason I did it for the sifting building. It would maybe make sense in the build's function, but also provides a unique shape off of the what would normally be a very square looking building without it. But before we start adding things like extra pieces off the sides like that, I think we can still improve the shape of this build. If you take a little bit of sandstone here and add to our stone cutter upgrade in our backpack, we can go ahead and make a couple of sandstone walls. What I want to do with these is maybe just break out these two blocks on all corners and fill them in with the walls instead. This just takes off the hard edge of the corners of this rectangular build up top and adds a little bit of variety while still keeping the general shape the same. Now for this build, I could choose to do a roof similar to one of the other builds where they have kind of a more pointed and sloped roof, but I think for this design, I actually am leaning more towards the type of roof that we did on the building over where the power is that's very kind of flat topped build with the trim around the outside. I do love the way this kind of looks. And I think we'll start with by adding a little bit of dark oak in here. It's a very light build so far overall, so a little bit of dark oak might not be terrible. It'll also help tie in with a little bit of the dark oak we have going around for the roofs around here. For now, let's just see if we can put in some trapdoors as the trim here, and we'll go all the way around the build. We'll bring them all along the edges of this top block just like this, and we'll leave the corners out just to provide a little bit more shaping and not so hard squared. And I do kind of like the way that looks. It maybe looks a little bit too of the same though, so there might be a way we can bring in a little bit of variety with some spruce. If we, maybe we break out this block here, is that gonna, yeah, that actually looks really cool. So maybe what we can go ahead and do is maybe every second block we can put in a trapdoor, a spruce trapdoor just like this, and that'll maybe help break up the sameness of all this dark oak. Yeah, I do like the way this trim looks a lot, but I do think it maybe looks a little bit thin still for what we're gonna be wanting up here. So I wanna try adding in a little bit of granite to this build because granite is the kind of the similar tone to the mud here. And I think it could look really nice. I'm sure other blocks here could work too. Like, I'm sure even just some more dark oak or spruce could work totally fine here, but I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit. So let's just try a little bit of granite in here, see how this looks. This is just the normal granite from Vanilla, and then also the cut granite from Create, just to provide a little bit of difference in the texture here. So let's just kind of vary it a little bit on top of the dark oak, and that hopefully will add a little bit of extra depth and color. Yeah, that's not too bad. I think the corners maybe look a little weird here because of the kind of the hard faces here. So maybe what we do is we just bring in a dark oak trapdoor on the corners here, just on the bottoms of them, just so it breaks up that one face. But other than that, I think I like the design of that overall. Some lanterns hanging off these dark oak trapdoors could also look nice for some detail, so I think that's not a bad start. As for the top of the roof here, I'm not 100% sure what I want to go for design wise. I do like the idea of having the dark oak roof to kind of match everything else going on here, but I also don't want it to look too much the same to everything else. But let's go ahead and try it at least, just to see how this looks overall. I think what we're going to do is just basically trim it with the dark oak trapdoors here, and then maybe we'll drop it down by 1 block to be these dark oak slabs, just like this. Yeah, I think I do like the dark oak. I think it does bring in a little bit of darkness to the build that is needed, which kind of helps separate all the light colors out. So that's actually really nice. Then we can come in here with just some lanterns and just place down maybe a chain and a lantern on each of these. Now there are a couple other details that we can add here to make this just feel a little bit nicer. To add a little more detail and depth to these walls, I want to add a little bit of spruce stairs on these blocks just like so. Then we can maybe use some oak trapdoors in here to break up the spruce just a little bit by just throwing in 1 oak trapdoor right here and also 1 right here. Now this corner looks very plain, so maybe we'll go ahead and just blend the transition here by just throwing in a slab, and maybe we can even just throw a trapdoor on top to smooth it out, and we'll just do that on the corners just like so. So I think I'm pretty much happy with how this trim is all shaped and everything is all looking. I think we can basically move on to the final part of the build, which will be the front terrace area right here. In terms of walking in here, I think having at least 3 block gap will be nice, just to be able to have a little bit of space to walk in and look around. So I think we'll go ahead and leave 3 blocks, and then we'll place down some blocks just like this. Maybe we'll go 3 high for now, because we are going to have this terrace kind of drop down to meet where these logs come up to. So maybe we'll have it just come a little lower than we think right now. So now I want to connect up these 2 logs here with some trim. So probably just going to be using the same spruce trim that we have been. We'll probably just bring it up like so. And yeah, that's a nice small transition down here, which I think will look pretty good. And we'll do the exact same thing on this one right here. Now for the actual roof color of the terrace itself, I think sticking with the warm themes will be nice. But I wanted to try using some of these witch hazel slabs. And I think with this, we'll start 1 block below where the trim is, just to kind of provide a little bit of a framework that we're going to be working within. And then we'll, I guess, just shape the side of it to kind of just come up to meet where the spruce is. Just like that. And we'll probably go ahead and do this on the other side here as well. Now, if this comes across just like this will probably be okay, but I think what we can do to give a little bit of extra breathing room in here, if we're going to be walking in from the front at all, which we might be, is to provide this with a little bit of an arch shape up front to give us a little bit more airspace to walk in and through. So I think what we can do is just go ahead and bring all these up by 1 block, and then we'll meet in the middle like this. We'll just have 3 blocks in the middle, and that should be okay. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that shape. Just a nice, very simple 1, 2, and then 3 across. I think now we can just basically follow the exact same shape as we had before. We'll just bring it up by 1 block every time, just like that, until we get to the point where we've met the top here. If I go up here to here, that's probably where we're going to bring this all the way across to, and then we'll go ahead and break this out and then just bring them across like so. Now, I actually might want this to drop down to be at the same level as these feeding slabs. So I'm thinking what we can do is just dig out this area right in here. So if we come in here and just right click, can we change the look of these? We can. Nice. So this should be pretty straightforward. All we have to do then is just break out maybe a block or 2 here. And then we can go ahead and just mix and match in here with some of our cobble and our normal tuff. Yeah, it looks pretty good, I think. So I think what we can go ahead and do is end up connecting up the path to potentially the side. For now, we'll just basically let this be, and we'll make the path another time because I'm not focusing on the path right now. But for now, this is not a bad little step down area right here. Now, obviously, our honey is going to be on the other side here, and we already have 144 buckets of honey, which is fantastic, which means we can actually complete that quest that we were trying to get to, which is awesome. But yeah, I think that's going to be good. And other than that, there aren't too many more details that I want to add to this build, because I don't want to overdo it and make it look a little too complicated for what it needs to be. There are only a few small details that I want to add, maybe some more bushes and flowers around the side here, maybe some roses and such, but other than that, I would call this build complete. And here it is, the final build. I think this turned out amazing. I love how all of it turned out. For being a freehand build and not too large of a build, it came together pretty quickly, so I'm very happy about that. All of our bees are here, making us plenty of honey. I have all of them filled in here, so all of our hives are now full. I added some foliage around the sides just to kind of create some sort of natural barriers here, but we can still slide in around here if we want to. Currently, we have 187 buckets of honey, which is actually enough to get our task done. So I brought over this task screen. Let's set the task to 100 buckets of honey, just like so. And now we can just take a pipe right here and start piping it directly in. And that should almost instantly complete, which it did. Awesome. So we should come in here and see that this part of the quest is now done. If we now change the task to the 100,000 FE, which we can go ahead and do, we can now just put a point on this, I think, and that should start to, there we go, it instantly completed, which is amazing. And we have this first quest done. I'm just getting started. But that's going to do it for me for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed the episode. I had a ton of fun making this, so if you did as well, feel free to leave a comment and let me know that you enjoyed or what you want to see more of. Also, be sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. It's the best place to stay up to date on everything that's going on. But that's it for me, everybody. I hope you all have a good one, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye!